Don't let a little rain in Tokyo dampen your baseball day. The Netherlands and Cuba start what should be a fantastic day on the final day of the second round. Japan's 2-0, Netherlands 1-1. Netherlands and Cuba, our first game. Japan and Israel, our second game. And all four teams are still alive, but to simplify, a win for Netherlands, the very least they get is a play-in game. A loss by Cuba eliminates them. A win, though, and the Cubans' hopes are still alive. Hi, everybody. Rich Schwartz along with Buck Martinez. I know that sounds complicated. I'll simplify it for you. Cuba, Netherlands, they don't like each other. There's a history, and they played a great game here in 2013.
Well, they sure did. In fact, the Netherlands knocked Cuba out of the Classic in 2013, and Cuba doesn't want that to happen for a second straight tournament. This is a very good Netherlands offensive ball club, and they're finally starting to get the timing down. They're swinging the bats very well right now.
And their lineup underwent a little bit of a change against Israel. Hensley Mullins, not the big guys up front, but the bench players and the role players, and both the big guys and the bench players had big nights.
Yeah, this is a balanced attack. This is almost as good a lineup as Japan features. Vladimir Valentin got a little message from his manager, said, hey, don't try to do too much at the plate. He's got 10 hits, and how about Didi Gregorius? The Yankee shortstop is the DH, and he's hitting like one. Llorendo de Castro got a start at first base. He came through with a big RBI base hit. And how about Sean Daraga, the catcher? He too drove in 2 runs as the Netherlands really manhandled the Israeli team. 12-2 final in 8 innings. Valentin with 3 hits, 3 RBIs, and he scored 3. Didi Gregorius had a big 3-run home run. And Jair Jurgens, the starting pitcher, no walks, 5 strikeouts, and clutch hitting up and down the order for the Netherlands.
Buck is a former manager. You can sympathize with Carlos Martí against Japan. He changed his lineup, and it worked. He juggled his bullpen, and that worked. What did Cuba in was their defense. You can't do that against Japan.
No, the competition is too close in this tournament. Top of the order, 1 through 3. 0-12, 5 strikeouts. 2 wild pitches allowed Japan to tie it. The Saavedra error in the 8th. The mistakes combined to allow Japan to score 4 runs, 3 unearned runs. Cuba can't make mistakes against the Netherlands or they'll be on their way home.
Can Cuba clean it up and sneak in the back door? Can the Netherlands repeat that epic win in 2013? We've got 2 games in Tokyo. The first is Cuba and Netherlands. Netherlands and Cuba, you can see the rain here in Tokyo town, but the Tokyo Dome is going to be jumping today. This will be a fascinating day of baseball as Cuba races out, ready to face the Netherlands tonight, Japan and Israel. And all 4 teams, mathematically, are still alive. Cuba looking for their first win. They'll need some help. They'll hope that 1 and 2 will be good enough to get them into a playoff game. And Netherlands just trying to take care of business and get to 2-1 here in the second round. Their lineup looks this way. Talented, certainly. Andrelton Simmons at short, Xander Bogaerts at third. Jurickson Profar has had a really nice tournament. So has Vladimir Valentin. Didi Gregorius, the DH, is swinging like a DH. He's driving in runs, getting big hits. Jonathan Scope at second. Sean Zaraga, a Game 2 replacement, had a big game. He's back in there. Same with Llorendo de Castro. A lot of great international experience. And Kalian Sams gets a start in left field for Hensley Mullins. And for Cuba, got a right-hander on the mound.
31-year-old Lazaro Blanco. He pitched for Cuba in the 2015 Pan Am Games in Toronto. This is his second start of this Classic. He went just 2 2/3 against Australia. Had a couple of walks and had 3 walks and 2 strikeouts, but he is a veteran. He throws all 4 pitches. Fastball, curve, slider, and a change. He is a big game pitcher for Cuba. We mentioned the Pan Am Games, but he also started 2 games in the Caribbean World Series for Cuba. He needs to be more aggressive in this game for Cuba for them to win. He can't afford to walk hitters in this lineup for the Netherlands. They have a terrific balanced lineup. He's got to be more efficient with his pitches and use his fastball very aggressively.
Here is Cuba's defense, and here was the problem last night in the loss to Japan 8-5.
Cuba has committed 6 errors in their 5 games. There's a change in left field. Guillermo Aviles gets the start in left field as Despine is the DH. Santos and Mesa in the outfield. Delgado, Ayala, Graciel, and Saavedra. Saavedra committed the error in the 8th inning that allowed the Japanese to take the lead. Behind the plate, Josvani Alarcon. He allowed 2 pitches to get by him in the 6th. 2 wild pitches let Japan tie it up in the 6th. The defense can't be shaky for Marti today against the Netherlands.
Carlos Marti looking down his bench saying, hey guys, wake up. I know it's noon in Tokyo, but this is it for Cuba. They have to win, and then they have to hope that things fall their way to get them in a play-in game. Andrelton Simmons takes a breaking ball for a strike. Simmons in the leadoff spot has been very good for the Netherlands. 8 hits, 24 at-bats, and of course, as usual, playing Gold Glove defense. Simmons, left center field. Santos is back at the track, makes the catch. And there's 1 out here in the 1st inning. This is Hensley Mullins and Andrew Jones side by side. Jones on the right, Mullins on the left. Skipper of the Netherlands, Jones his bench coach, and of course Jones was part of that epic 2013 game, a big part of that 2013 game when the Netherlands beat Cuba, and that sent the Netherlands to the final round in San Francisco, and it sent Cuba home. And a loss here in this game will send Cuba home as well. Now Bogaerts takes a fastball for a strike.
Xander Bogaerts, just 3 hits in 17 at-bats so far in the Classic, batting .176. They have moved him into the 2 spot. He had hit 3rd throughout this tournament until their last game. They bounced him up to 2. And he reached base 3 times, had a single and 2 walks, scored a run in that game against Israel.
Yeah, that makeover to the lineup, Buck, really sparked things, not only with the Bogaerts, but Profar, who went from 2 to 3, Ballantine, who had 3 hits, Gregorius, who drove in 5 runs. Cuban shortstop Alexander Ayala has a wardrobe malfunction out at short. And, you know, the other thing of the dynamic here, it's a noon start in Tokyo, and it's a day game after a night game, and an emotional night game for Cuba. I mean, that was a grinder of a game last night. Back and forth they went, Japan and Cuba, and it wasn't until Japan scored 3 times in the 8th that the game was decided. Netherlands had a full day off, and that was a day off after they took care of business and pounded Israel by a score of 12-2.
Bogaerts still a little bit jumpy at home plate, trying to talk himself into calming down and letting the ball come to him. He's not facing that major league caliber fastball, so you've got to really change your sights and stay up the middle, go the opposite way.
Pitches in, and Bogaerts is aboard again. All right, you talked about Lazaro Blanco needing to be aggressive. How does that translate into a plan of attack at the plate?
Well, he's got to get ahead with his fastball, and then he can set up his very good secondary pitches. He's got a slider, slow curveball, and a changeup. But he can't get into hitters counts and just pound the strike zone with his fastball. He doesn't throw hard enough. He'll top out at 85 miles an hour. So you might as well throw your fastball early in the at-bats, trying to get ahead.
Jurickson Profar, and Bogaerts at first, and a strike. One dynamic of last night, as you see Profar's numbers, and his are very, very good, is that Cuba had to use everybody in order to try to take down Japan, and in particular Miguel Lajera, who was one of their very best bullpen weapons, and that takes him out of play today. Along with the little lefty Yera, he was over 30 pitches. So you lose 2 really nice bullpen pieces. And these games, which is an elimination game right now for Cuba, they lose, they're done. These are bullpen games anyways, and so without those 2 pieces, it's going to be a challenge.
But they do get their big right-hander back today, Vladimir Garcia. Had to have 3 days rest after throwing 50 pitches, so he is back today, and you can bet we will see him early on. He's a veteran of many seasons in Cuba, and he's a big, strong right-hander that they'll have to have pitch well today.
Bogarts at first, and Profar fouls it back. We talked about Profar and all that he's had to overcome. A torn labrum, and 2014 and 2015 were essentially wiped out. And for a young player, he's only 24, those are development years. Even though he was going to be in the big leagues, those are years that you learn and you build on. And so I think the Rangers happy that he's healthy and really looking forward to a 2017 from him.
Well, he told me that this offseason was the first year since his surgery that he could really work out on his baseball skills. In the past, in previous off seasons, he was just coming back from his shoulder surgery, rehabbing his shoulder, just getting the range of motion, the strength back in that shoulder. This season, he's worked on his baseball skills.
Ball in the dirt. Bogarts is on his way, and he arrives at second base. And balls in the dirt certainly were an issue for Yosvani Alarcon last night against Japan.
2 big wild pitches in the 6th inning allowed Japan to tie it up. Bogarts got a good secondary lead, bounces off and reacts quickly once he saw that ball in the dirt.
Goes as a wild pitch, and now a 2-2 count on Profar. Netherlands tries to score first right out of the chute. Blanco, the 2-2. End of the bat, and the English is going to keep it fair, and Profar is going to beat the throw. That's a good pitch by Blanco and a tough break for Cuba.
Not much you can do about this. It's cued right off the end of the bat. Profar puts his head down and digs for first base, beats the throw, gets himself an infield hit. A do-or-die play for Delgado. Really didn't have much of a shot at throwing out Profar. This time Saavedra digs out the ball in the dirt to keep it in front of him. Bogarts advances from second to third on the swinging bunt base hit.
Delgado had a terrific defensive game last night over at third base, despite the failings of the Cuban defense. And here is Ballantine, who's done a little bit of everything for this offense. Takes a breaking ball for a strike. Ballantine, a big-time slugger over here in Japan for many years. Got to the big leagues with the Mariners and the Reds. 10 hits. And he drives one to left, hits it deep down the line. Avila's back at the wall, and it's gone. And Ballantine has blasted Netherlands off to a 3-0 start.
The 1-out walk to Bogarts, and then the swinging bunt off the bat of Profar set up Ballantine. His second home run of the Classic. That's not what Carlos Martí was hoping for. Ballantine gets the Netherlands off and running early here in the first. And this is a strong man. Remember, he has the single-season home run record here in Japan. He hit 60 home runs in 2013. He hit that ball one-handed and got enough of it to hit it into the seats in left.
Ballantine has driven in 8. He's got a couple homers. He's only 11 for 19 this tournament. Gregorius, little chopper. Gracial the first. And Cuba has the second out. He knows this ballpark, Buck, and he knew that this one had a great shot. Up goes the bench, and up goes Netherlands. And so that energizes the Netherlands here, and you wonder about the psyche for Cuba. Their hopes dashed last night late in the ball game, and now early in this one, they're down 3-0.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for them to really maintain their focus. They've got to put up some zeros and get back in the game quickly. Already down 3-0.
That ball to center. Santos is there, and Scope is out. Vladimir Valentin, they love him here in Japan, and with good reason. And right now, he has lifted the Netherlands to a 3-0 start. Netherlands 3-0, and Valentin looking towards the sky. This is a pressure-packed game for both sides, and for Cuba, now they are down by 3. Roel Santos is in center field. Alexander Ayala is short. Yuroslavl Gracial gets the start at second. Alfredo Despaigne is the DH. Osmani Alarcon moves up to 5th. Guillermo Aviles is in left. Willian Saavedra at 1st. Jefferson Delgado's at 3rd. And Victor Mesa, who had a nice night, is in the 9 spot. And there's a strike from Diego Marquel to Roel Santos. Santos, Ayala, and Gracial. No Frederick Cepeda in this ball game, who's been struggling, one of the sluggers for Cuba. And there's Marquel, a ton of international experience, and had a great tournament 4 years ago. There's a bouncer out towards second, and Scope to first in time.
Marquel, a former bonus baby by the Blue Jays. He's got a fastball, curveball, slider, and a changeup. He's the most experienced pitcher on the Netherlands staff. He's pitched in all 4 WBCs. He made 3 starts in 2013 and won 2 games. And he signed as a 16-year-old. He was a bonus baby, signed out of Curacao. Spent 7 seasons in the Blue Jays minor league system and made it all the way up to AA in 2002. Interesting teammates for Marquel in 2002. Kevin Cash, the Tampa Bay manager, was a teammate of Marquel's in AA that season.
A strike to Ayala. Now, Cuba last night against Japan had some great offensive moments. And for Cuba, a lot of them came at the bottom of the lineup. Despaigne had 3 hits. Yuroslavl Gracial had a 2-run homer and a double. But the top of the order, Buck, really struggled. Santos was 0 for 4. Ayala was 0 for 4. Cepeda was 0 for 4. That's an enormous 0 for 12 donut leading into your best hitter in Despaigne.
5 strikeouts combined in that 0 for 12, and they just couldn't get anything going. And Santos continues to struggle to get on base. And when he doesn't get on base, Cuba doesn't score many runs.
That's one of the things that Carlos Martí, the Cuban manager, has told us throughout the stay here, is that this lineup is only as good as those first 2 hitters. Two, diving stop. Bogarts on a hop, got him at first. Nice play by DeCaster. And here's that Netherlands defense. Pick a shortstop, any shortstop. They're scattered everywhere.
Boy, there's a lot of athletes in the field for the Netherlands. Killian Sam starts in left field. Profor's in center, and he's been great. Valentin's in right. Bogarts, Simmons, Scope, and DeCaster around the infield. Sean Zaraga gets the start behind the plate for a 2nd straight game. Bogarts is the Red Sox shortstop, and he looks very comfortable at 3rd base. Andrelton Simmons, a former Platinum Gold Glover, and Bogarts dives, knocks it down, gets to his feet, and then bounces the ball intentionally across the diamond, having played on artificial surface a lot in the past.
End of the bat, Scope picks it up. That's a nice first inning for Diego Marquel. 3-0 Netherlands. The Tokyo Dome has been the host of World Baseball Classic play since the very beginning, back in 2006. And here we are on the final day, we think, of the second round. It's Cuba and it's the Netherlands. Zaraga takes a strike and it's 0-1. Urendel de Caster, Killian Sams, bottom third of the order for the Netherlands. I love it when they have it written, and sometimes I'll refer to it as the Kingdom of the Netherlands. That's very cool.
Well, indeed, this team is the team Kingdom of the Netherlands because there are players from all over the kingdom. Caribbean Islands, Aruba, and Curaçao were represented here. Didi Gregorius was actually born in the Netherlands, grew up in the Dutch Antilles.
Does that make Hensley Meulens the king
of the Kingdom team?
Right, of the Netherlands.
Hensley Meulens has done a terrific job putting this team together. And I think Hensley Meulens deserves consideration to be a major league manager.
Oh my goodness, Zaraga, a blast, but I think it's foul, and it is. Did that come down?
Went way to the back of the seats. Foul, and he crushed it.
We've told you about Zaraga's story. This is a guy that, is in the minor leagues. He had a taste of the major leagues, but it was kind of a cruel taste. It was called up, but never got to play. When he got called up, though, it was an emotional time. There he is. He knew that if Carlos Ruiz showed up from a trade, there he is. Couldn't be more happy. Hugs for everybody. He never got in the game, though, because Ruiz ended up showing up, and so he was sent back down to AAA.
But he got to say hi to everybody.
Yes, he did.
He was a Dodger for a day.
And the Dodgers sent a private plane to get him in Oklahoma City. Flew him to Burbank. He was in uniform. The dulcet tones of Vin Scully probably said that he was in the house. And it was back to the minor leagues. He probably had a Dodger dog, a gift certificate from Farmer John's, and a nice day's meal money.
Do you think they sent him back on a private jet?
Probably not.
Probably not. There wasn't the same urgency to send him back to AAA as there was to get him to the big leagues.
I think Southwest has a nonstop from LAX to Oklahoma City. 2-2 pitch. That one in the air. Urendel de Caster flies out to right. Cuba fans, early wake-up call for everybody. Actually, those are Netherlands fans. Zaraga and de Caster handled. Here's Killian Sams.
Just 0 for 1. Sams made the final out in the 11th inning in the defeat at the hands of Japan in the opener of this second round. He gets the start as Randolph Odeber, the left fielder, has been struggling a bit. Odeber with 5 strikeouts in his last 7 at-bats. Hensley Meulens has told the extra players on this team, he said, I'm going to go with the guys that have played in the major leagues. They're the guys that have had success, but if somebody stumbles, be ready. And now Sams gets a start.
And Meulens said that's always been one of the strengths of this team in international play and going back to World Baseball Classics in past. Now you've got the Andrelton Simmons and the Bogarts and Profars and Scopes and Gregorius and Ballantine. But the guys like Sams, de Caster, Zaraga, Smith, those are guys that always seem to come up with big hits. And as Meulens said, they elevate their game when the most important game arrives.
Well, it's the biggest stage they have a chance to play on. The other guys get to play in the big leagues, and to them, this is a very important game, but for those extra players, this is their chance to get in the spotlight. And there's a base hit.
Into the corner it goes, and Sams is going to take a turn at second and hold there. Remember, he had that big sacrifice fly that ended the game against Cuba and sent him to San Francisco back in 13. 2-out double here. Right at third base umpire Larry Vanover.
Sams has spent some time in the minor leagues with Seattle. He's also played for the Padres and the Texas Rangers. Last time he was in organized ball was 2013. He played at Frisco in AA for the Rangers. He played in the Canadian American League for Quebec last year, played in 61 games in that independent league.
Now Simmons, he hit a deep ball to the warning track in left center field back in the first. I know it was 4 years ago, Buck, but you and I were here for that game back in 2013. Sams had the sac fly. Cuba was a much more powerful team. Remember, they had Yosmani Tomas, Jose Abreu, Yureski Gurriel, Iglesias Guerrero, Arrubarruena, as well as a younger Cepeda, a younger Despagne. They had Simmons, and Simmons was really in terms of major league guys at the time, Simmons was the guy. Remember, he was in Atlanta, won a Gold Glove.
These young players had committed to play in 13 because they knew it was Andrew Jones's final representation of the Netherlands. And Andrew Jones is the baseball idol from Curacao, and all these youngsters looked up to him, and they had a chance to play with Andrew Jones in 2013, and they all signed up. And Jones scored that winning run.
Everybody else was so young and playing. That's into center field. That's a hit. And Andrelton Simmons is going to chase home Sams. And it's 4-0. So Simmons with a big RBI here. And in that 2013 game, he was a star as well. It's just an off-speed pitch, and he stays middle.
For Simmons, that's his 9th hit of the Classic. Great approach with 2 outs, just takes the ball right back up the middle. Sams can motor. He runs around third to come in with the 4th run, and Simmons has his 3rd RBI of the Classic.
That one is scorched to left, drops for a hit. Bogarts follows Simmons. And for Cuba, this is getting messy. And Carlos Marti knows that. He's already on his way out to the mound.
Vladimir Garcia, the big right-hander, is loosened up. He's been ready. And looks like they're going to make a pitching change here early on in the 2nd inning. Cuba can ill afford to fall any deeper in this hole. They trail 4-0 already, and that's going to be it for Blanco.
This has not started well for Cuba after the tight loss last night to Japan, down 4-0.
It's in round 2. Took place right here at Tokyo Dome, and Netherlands right now really swinging the bats well. Andrew Jones pretty proud of the young players on this team. They scored 12 runs on 15 hits in their last game, and they've got 4 runs on 5 hits, and we're in the 2nd inning.
The Netherlands trying to take care of business. If they do that and Japan were to defeat Israel tonight, then both those teams, Japan and Netherlands, would be headed to Arizona, actually, first before Los Angeles. There's Garcia and his numbers.
Garcia just eligible to pitch today because in his last game against Australia, he threw 51 pitches, so he had to have 3 days rest, and he is back on the mound against Day, and they're going to need him to pitch deep into this game. Remember, they don't have Lahara or Yera available today because of their pitch count in the game last night.
Profar infield hit in the first. Vladimir Valentin blasted a 3-run homer. And a changeup is pop foul and out of play. And then an RBI single by Andrelton Simmons here in the second. He does not get cheated.
Well, you know that he is thrilled to be healthy again, and we have talked about his shoulder problems, surgery, and missing 2 full seasons, but he is healthy again, still a young man, and Texas Rangers are anxious for Profar's return to their active roster. He is such a talented offensive player and can play all over the field. He volunteered to play center field with all of these great middle infielders. He said, hey, put me in center field, I can do it. And then Andrew Jones jumped on board and coached him throughout the first round in Seoul. And he has played well.
Profar had to kind of get out of the way. That almost clipped his jersey.
Yeah, this might be in response to that big swing when Profar fell down. You can see he thinks there might be some intent behind his pitch, and we have talked about these two teams and how they have had some hotly contested games in the past. But Profar looking out to the veteran Garcia as if to say, hey man, keep that stuff over the plate. But Profar took a mighty hack and actually fell to his knees on a previous pitch in this at bat. Now Profar's digging into the batter's box.
1-2. Breaking ball on a hop. Saavedra handles and gets to the bag. Another run and a 4-0 Netherlands lead. Well, tonight, round 2's last day. The Mensch on the bench. We'll see if he's got any more magic left. Israel tonight takes on Japan. 7 o'clock here in Tokyo. And Japan is just steamrolled through everybody else. They are 5-0 in the Classic.
Going to be an interesting pitching matchup tonight as Kode Senga, hard-throwing right-hander, will start for Japan. And Josh Zaid, a reliever, will get the start for Israel. And Zaid's got deep roots to this team Israel, and you can bet he's anxious to make this start tonight.
Despaigne takes inside from Markwell. Markwell worked 1-2-3 in the first. Bottom 2 here. Netherlands up by a 4-0 score. Markwell chock full of international experience in games like this. Simmons, an easy throw over to get Despaigne. Despaigne without Cepeda in the lineup today. Cepeda struggling mightily. Another 0 for 4 last night and a 1 for 15 in the tournament. And you wonder, probably not for Despaigne, but you wonder if this is the last that we will see of the World Baseball Classic of Frederick Cepeda.
When you look at the Classic history offensively, Cepeda is on the leaderboards all over the map for hits. Came into this tournament the leader in hits, tied for the lead in doubles. Most runs scored, most runs batted in, most home runs. He has had a terrific run playing in the WBC, but he has not been the same hitter in this tournament that we have seen in the past. Had to be a tough decision for Marti to keep him out of the lineup today, but you can see his career numbers. A very impressive run for Frederick Cepeda.
Alarcon is up, and he pulls it to third. Bogarts crossed the diamond in time, and Markwell is feeding his infielders lots of ground balls. He's had some incredible moments. Talk about not only the World Baseball Classic, but the Olympics. Look at the home runs, the gold medals in the 2004 Olympics, beating the Australians.
A terrific career in international play representing his country. 2009, that 2-homer game against South Africa. He homered off Brian Dunsing to beat USA 10-2 in the semifinals of the 2008 Olympics.
Aviles, and he's hit by a fastball. Remember, there was a fastball that was in on Profar. Markwell comes in, and Aviles is hit.
Yeah, there's no love lost between these two teams. They have banged heads several times over the last several years. Markwell throwing that pitch up and in with 2 outs. He had gotten 5 straight ground ball outs before hitting Aviles. Markwell's making his 5th career start in the WBC. He has pitched in all 4 classics, one of 21 players that can boast participating in all 4 of the classics, including Frederick Cepeda.
Popped up to Castor and Scope, and it's Castor that makes the catch. Cuba in the Netherlands, and right now it's all Dutch. This guy should have played for the Yankees long ago, and then Mel Allen could have been calling Ballantine blasts for Vladimir Ballantine. And he hit another one early in this game. This was a 3-run homer.
Hit it one-handed out of the ballpark. His 2nd home run of the Classic. That's the 6th home run hit by the Netherlands.
Oh, wow! A liner and gone! Vladimir the Great, 5-0. This is like that old show, Home Run Derby.
Ballantine, 185 home runs here in Japan. It's his 2nd of the afternoon. He has driven in 4. And the big bats for the Netherlands doing the damage early on. Players play here in Japan. They have chants playing in front of their home crowd, and his chant includes the phrase, "The goddess of victory shines on him," and it's shining brightly today.
I think it's the goddess of bombs, because he hits them, and man, when he hits them, there is no doubt. That one for sure. I mean, that was just a bullet that raced out of here. It's too bad we were unable to fit the StatCast radar machine in Buck's suitcase, because StatCast, it would have been fun to hear what the exit velocity was of that. It didn't take long to get out, that's for sure.
He's a big, strong man, and when he squares them up, they go. We mentioned that he has set the all-time home run record for a single season here in Japan, hitting 60 home runs in 2013.
Here's Scope, and he fouls it back. So the Netherlands is up 5-0. Cuba already well into their bullpen. And Diego Markwell has been his usual baffling self to Cuba.
Markwell really doing a good job of keeping the ball on the ground. 5 of the 6 outs he's recorded have been weak ground ball outs. Disappointing start for Cuba. Cuba doesn't have the depth that we have become used to over the years, and obviously the defections of the great star players that have gone to the major leagues really limits their talent.
Scope swings and misses. And he strikes out. You're right about that. And there, look, obviously things are changing in Cuba. You wonder if they change fast enough that the next time in 4 years they play the World Baseball Classic, if Cuba's able to use players who are major league players who have defected from Cuba on their team, because that would change the whole equation for them. Obviously, they're proud of Serie Nacional and baseball in Cuba, but can you imagine a team with the Puig and Cespedes, Aledmus Diaz, Tomas, Kendrys Morales? Oh, this is not good. Fastball up, in, and it hits Zaraga. Garcia in to see if he's all right.
It hit him up around the shoulder, and you hope that it didn't get near his head.
It's the third hitter to be hit, a pair of Dutch and one Cuban. Garcia was there. You could see him actually shake the hand of Zaraga. And that's the last thing you want. If this game does get out of hand in terms of score, Buck, you don't want the rivalry and the intensity to spill into this.
No, not at all. Certainly don't want it to become a beanball war by any means. Remember, Profar took one up and in from Garcia to end the second, and then he would ground out. Garcia coming into the ballgame in relief with 2 outs. And now Zaraga appears to be okay, getting attended to by the training staff.
Zaraga doesn't want to come out. He likes playing, and he's played well in his 2 starts.
This is when it gets to be frightening, up around a player's head. But it looked like it caught him on the back of the shoulder, and he turned away from it. And fortunately, it looked like it hit him on the shoulder, and they're checking him out to make sure he's okay. And obviously, anytime a player is hit up around the neck, head, the protocol for concussions always in place to make sure the player is okay before you allow him to continue.
Well, Zaraga looks like he's convinced everybody that he's good to go. He's on his way down to first base. And we'll see how this game evolves from here. DeCaster's coming up with 2 outs and nobody on. Vladimir Valentin has hit 2 home runs. His last a scorching line drive to left center. He's driven in 4 of the 5 runs for the Netherlands. And here is DeCaster now, who bounced out his only time up. Game's going on in San Diego finally. The second round opening in San Diego. Breaking ball, a strike. Puerto Rico leading the Dominican 3-1 in the top of the 8th inning.
Home runs in that game. Nelson Cruz has hit a home run for the Dominican Republic, and Yadier Molina has gone deep for Puerto Rico.
Breaking ball, that ball hit deep. Santos is back at the track. That's gone. And maybe the best payback was a 2-run homer. Yorendel DeCaster, and the route is on. It's 7-0. And this new lineup that Hensley Mullins ran out against Israel, getting DeCaster in there has really paid off. He's 4 for 7, and he's driven in 4 since getting into the lineup.
Got that start against Israel on Monday. Went 3 for 4 in that game and drove in a couple of runs. He went 3 for 5 in that game. And here it's a long home run to center. That's the 3rd home run of the ball game. And this is a no-doubter. DeCaster is one of 3 players on this Team Netherlands that has participated in all 4 of the tournaments.
Santos there makes the catch. 3 more runs, 2 more home runs. Valentin and DeCaster there in the dugout. The first one, blink and you missed it. A scorcher. And then DeCaster goes out as well, 7-0. Vladimir Valentin. His fan club is here. That's a good shot through the Coco. Valentin is homered twice here in this ball game. It's 7-0. It's only the bottom of the third. And Diego Marquel back to work. Fastball strike. Jefferson Delgado for Cuba. Victor Mesa. And then Raul Santos.
Marquel's got a comfortable lead, obviously, pitching in the bottom of the third, 7-0, and he got a little visit from the home plate umpire, Todd Tishner, before he took the mound for his warm-ups to start this inning. And obviously the message from Tishner, hey, let's don't get silly here and start hitting these guys, and we don't want things to get out of hand.
This one's going to fall in for a hit, and it kicks away from the right fielder. That's Valentin out there. Delgado in at second with a leadoff double here in the third inning. Well, this can't be easy for Cuba. They are so proud. They've had great success in international play. But as we've talked about, this is a very different roster than we're used to seeing. There's almost a generation that's missing here, that generation between 24 and 29, 30 years old. You've got a lot of older players, guys that really, with the loss of the Abreus and the Tomases and names like that, Gurriel, are getting a chance to play. Here's Mesa. Now Mesa is the next generation. There just isn't a current generation. There's the next generation, Mesa and Cespedes, Yoelqui Cespedes. But there's no current generation. There's the last generation. You get a lot of the, on this team, 30 to 35-year-old players. Little tapper. Now, Buck, you managed in this tournament. You managed Team USA in 2006. You've broadcast now. This is your third as a broadcaster. Do you think that eventually the players that have left Cuba, that obviously are Cuban, will have a chance to play in international competition like this, the World Baseball Classic, and represent Cuba?
I do. I think eventually the hard feelings will soften as the relationship improve with Cuba and the United States, and I think that those players that have defected should be allowed to play in this, and you can imagine how proud they would be to be able to play for their national team the same way everybody else does. But obviously when they defected, they were going against the country, and that's why they haven't been allowed to play for Cuba at this point. But I think that would be a true test, and then you would see the best of Cuba playing against the rest of the world.
And we showed you that lineup that it looks like a fantasy World Baseball Classic draft where you get to draft first 8-9 times, you know, and it obviously would help in terms of star power and production. They could use a few more arms, especially at the front of their rotation.
Well, I think even Team USA this time around is well represented, and you look at the roster full of stars, full of all-stars, and I think they're understanding now that it is truly an honor to play in this tournament. And when you see Team Japan, I think that really reflects what it means to them. They've got stars playing in different positions, much like the Netherlands. Whatever it takes to win a tournament to represent your country. We have talked time and time again with Hensley Mullins, a veteran of World Series play with the San Francisco Giants as a coach. Said it's different when you strap on your uniform and represent your country.
Chopper to first. DeCaster gets to the bag just in time to get Santos. We've had a chance to watch Cuba here now for 2 weeks in Japan. It started back in 1878 when they had a professional league. Now remember that the Cuban players that came over in the late 50s, early 60s knew that they weren't going to be back home. We've talked a lot about Cookie Rojas and some of the guys that had to come over under really extreme circumstances and not really sure what the future would hold. Those were the trailblazers for a lot of the Cuban players. And then obviously the players that escaped and fled the country, those that, well, out, many of them on international competition, defected in different countries around the world.
Havana had a AAA team, the Havana Sugar Kings that played in the International League. They were a Class AAA team from '54 to 1960. They were affiliated with the Cincinnati Reds, and it was a terrific road trip you could imagine going down to Cuba in the mid-50s. And some people think that if this tournament is going to be expanded, that would be a great venue to hold an early round in Havana.
Well, as we said, things are changing in Cuba. Whether they change fast enough for that to happen in 4 years, or for the Cuban players in Major League Baseball to play, that's obviously to be determined. Markwell is getting outs, especially on the ground. 7-0 Dutch. 3 of them have powered Netherlands to a 7-0 lead, and this ball game arrives in the top of the 4th. And it's already the 3rd at bat for the leadoff man, Andrelton Simmons, an RBI single, and the best bullpen piece that Cuba has available on the mound here, and a big right-hander, Vladimir Garcia. Lazaro Blanco started. He didn't last through the 2nd.
As Fanny Alarcon turned his body and says he's okay, gives thumbs up to Garcia. That ball was thrown so far in front of home plate, he didn't know which way to go, and actually exposed his rib cage to that bouncing ball and caught him in the ribs just behind that chest protector. You tell kids that are catching, say, hey, you're protected. Don't turn your head or turn your body because you're protected straight on. But Alarcon got twisted and took one in the ribs.
Catching gear, my friend, and you know this better than anybody, catching gear has come so far in innovation and such. That's it's kind of an old school mask hooked on to a helmet. And yesterday, when you and I went to the Mizuno flagship store here in downtown Tokyo, Mizuno, longtime manufacturer of baseball gear. Many players have used Mizuno gloves and still do in the big leagues. Mizuno bats, Mizuno shoes. Their catching gear and their baseball stuff is so advanced. And if you are a baseball fan and you're ever in Tokyo, if you're a player or a coach, you need to get to that store. You'll spend like 3 hours fascinated at the equipment they have, the innovations they have. And then the old school part of it was the guy in the corner making gloves, handmade gloves. And then we were actually able to see him use this contraption that once he made the gloves would break the gloves in.
Yeah, it was just like a sledgehammer that he would mold the pocket, move the glove around, it hit that sledgehammer, and it was a pneumatic device that kept pounding that pocket of the glove. You and I used to have to do that with our fist.
Well, in my era, it was strap like a softball or a baseball, wrap your belt around it, maybe throw it under your mattress, or put it someplace where it was very damp. Bogarts, right center field. Santos is there and he makes the catch. Simmons is tagging and racing for second, and he's in there.
Simmons did a good job of watching Santos, the center fielder, and once Simmons recognized it was going to be caught, he went back to first base, tagged, and moves into second base. Gets himself into scoring position.
You and I, when we were there, we also picked up some catching gear, and there was a catcher's mask, which was the lightest I've ever felt. Obviously, you've worn them and you felt the stuff that's being used in the game. What did you think of that?
Yeah, the equipment today that these catchers have at their disposal is remarkable. First of all, it's very protective. Secondly, it's very light. I think one of the concerns about that particular mask right there is it's made with really high-tech metal, and it doesn't bend. The old iron mask used to bend on foul chips, and they would absorb most of the force of that foul tip. Well, now these high-tech metals don't bend, and they translate that power right to your head. That's why concussions are such a concern now for the foul tips.
Profar rips it into right field. Mesa has a good arm, picks it up. Runner coming home. Simmons trying to score, and he does, standing up. Cuba cut the ball, did not make a throw to the plate, and it's now 8-0.
Yeah,
and Netherlands is not slowing down.
The Cuban team doesn't play very sound fundamentally. There's no reason to cut this ball. This is a hot shot right to the right fielder. And watch Mesa as he sets up. Saavedra, the first baseman, lines himself up as the cutoff man, but this throw is on line and perfect. But Saavedra, for some reason, cut it off, eliminating any chance to get Simmons at the plate. I think you got to let that ball go through. It was such a good throw on the line that the batter runner Profar would not have been able to advance to second if they let it go through.
Carlos Marti out to the mound, wants the ball, and Garcia exits. Valentin standing, and now we've had 3 hit batters in this ball game, a pair of Dutch players. And there's your Valentin fan club. And Valentin homered to left for 3 runs in the first. Solo shot came in the third.
Valentin, kind of a slow start to this classic, but he has now homered twice today, 4 RBIs in this game, his second and third home runs in the 2017 World Baseball Classic.
And I want to amend what I said, Buck. There have only been 2 guys hit. Profar was dusted, but he did not get hit. Amazing that he didn't get hit. So only 2 have officially been hit by pitches. Valentin, 3 homers in the Classic. and Torres, with that pitch, doesn't want much to do with the big slugger. They love him here in Japan. He had to battle an Achilles injury back in 2015, but he bounced back with a big year last year, and he shoots that one out. And in case you missed it, here are the 2 homers today.
First inning with 2 aboard, he one-hands this ball into the first row of seats, but then look at this shot. No one-handing swing on this one, a low liner deep into the seats in left field. A 2-homer, 4 RBI game so far, and we're just in the 4th inning.
2-2. Change up, hit hard in the hole, it's short. Ayala to second, it's dropped. Graciel dropped the ball. Cuba messy on defense last night, and that has continued here this afternoon.
That's the 7th error committed by the Cubans, and this is just inexcusable, just a lack of concentration. You can see Graciel, the second baseman, knows it's going to be a force play, no chance to turn 2, and he just takes his eye off it, and it goes for another error. Big error in the 8th inning last night led to the game winner coming in to score. 3 runs in the 8th inning for Japan, as they won that one 8-5.
And remember the wild pitches that were not blocked at the plate. Alarcon getting the start for the injured Morejon. Those were key in the comeback and eventual win by Japan. Gregorius to right, back goes Mesa at the track, makes the catch, tagging at second, and headed to third is Profar, and he arrives there. Valentin will hold at first. And Scope comes up with 2 outs.
Didi Gregorius 0 for 3 so far this afternoon, but that fact reflects just how deep this lineup is. Gregorius had a big game in his last game, coming up with a 3-run home run, an RBI triple. He scored 3 runs. Drove in 5. He had a sac fly in the 8th inning in that 12-2 win over Israel. But today, 0-4, but they've still put up 8 runs on 8 hits.
A lot of the Cuban pitchers do not have major league velocity, which major league velocity is 93, 94. That one into left field, and it falls for a base hit. Another run comes home. Profar scores. Valentin hustling to third. He's in with a slide. And there's no stopping Netherlands now. It's 9-0.
This team is loaded with major league players, and they're major league star players. Scope with a big home run season last year. Flares that one into left field, picks up the RBI. And everybody's getting into the act now. It's 9-0.
Here's Zaraga. He was the Netherlands player that was hit by a pitch. That came 2 batters after Valentin's second homer. It was a fastball that came up, clipped him on the right shoulder, and then hit his helmet. He had attention for about 3 minutes and stayed in the ball game. Dutch on the corners.
Disappointing development here for Carlos Martí, who was asked to come back and manage the national team. He has 39 years of experience in Cuba. He sat out a couple of years because of health concerns, but they approached him and said, we'd like you to coach the national team. And he said, I felt like I owed it to the Cuban national team after everything that I've received because of baseball. First-class man, Rich. We have had many conversations with him during the course of these 2 rounds, and he has been terrific.
You know, a manager can only go as far as his roster will take him. And, you know, watching this, we've talked about some of the deficiencies that Cuba has. Martí, 68. Zaraga locked in. Takes a fastball that just misses. Torres down off the mound.
That's an interesting statement you made. The managers can only go as far as their rosters will take them. Then why are we fired?
Because they can't fire the whole roster. Off-speed pitch misses down low. This Netherlands roster is really a fascinating makeup of major league standouts, some stars, some guys who are budding stars, and then guys who have played in international games and had big moments along the way. Pitch misses in, and Zaraga walks to load the bases. And one of those guys who's had big moments is Yorendel de Castro, and here he comes to the plate. He was the guy that took down the Dominican in 2009. Well, not just him, but he had the final blow, the ball that kicked off of Ibar's leg at first base. And Carlos Martí is on his way out to the mound. You got a pair of Cuban relievers. Next up, looks like the right-hander Yonder Martinez. 9-0 Netherlands, and it's only the 4th game, and they're well on their way to doing that. The worst they can do is a play-in game. If Cuba loses, they are eliminated. If Japan wins tonight, both Netherlands and Japan win. The Netherlands is up 9-0 right now. They are pounding Cuba. Bases loaded. And at the plate, Yorendel de Castro. And those of you that have just watched Puerto Rico beat the Dominican, the last time the Dominican lost a game in the World Baseball Classic, this was the guy that ended it. De Castro hit the ball in 2009 when the Netherlands beat him into right field. That's a base hit. More runs coming home. Valentin scores. Scope will score. And the throw goes all the way to the screen. A messy, messy day for the Cubans. Gets even worse.
De Castro inserted into the lineup for the first time in their last game, has responded very well. Watch this approach. Not trying to do too much, just slaps it through the right side of the infield. Another base hit, 2 RBIs for De Castro. He homered in his previous at-bat. He's driven in 4, and this is a good piece of hitting. Pitch was away. 2 runs come in to score. Valentin, and right behind him, Jonathan Scope, and the route is on.
My goodness. And here is Sams, who takes outside. Now, Buck, last night we watched a nail-biter of a game, a terrific game with Cuba and Japan. And Cuba kept getting the lead, and Japan kept coming back. And in the 8th inning, it was Cuba's defense that let them down. Just a couple of defensive mistakes cost them the game last night. They have had numerous mistakes in this one, and the Netherlands is pounding them right now.
Yeah, you just can't make mistakes when you're up against this type of ball club. The Netherlands, they'll take advantage of every opportunity. There was an error on a force out when Graciel dropped a routine throw from the shortstop. That allowed the inning to continue, and this ball is smoked.
Oof. Goodness. Now the Netherlands in this ball game has already hit 3 home runs. Vladimir Valentin has hit 2 of them, and of course Valentin, the prodigious slugger that plays over here in Japan, is only 12 for 20 in the World Baseball Classic. Actually 12 for 21 now. And as you noted, De Castro is also homered. And that ball goes to the screen. Another run is going to come home. A poor job by Alarcon behind the plate last night. And again tonight, he doesn't block that ball. All right, this is the carryover probably from last night, Buck.
No question about it. In the 6th inning, Cuba had a lead, and they struck out the third baseman, Nobuhiro Matsuda, but he reached on a wild pitch. He would move to second base on another wild pitch. He scored the tying run on the single by Kobayashi, and then in the 8th inning, a 1-out error. And Cuba has just lost their focus, and certainly this is a very sloppy effort by Cuba. It certainly can't be too pleasing to their manager.
Sams to right field. It'll stay in the park. Mesa is there. 5 more runs for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. It is 12-0. All right, Buck, how do you summarize 12-0 in the 4th inning?
Well, the big bats of the Netherlands really starting to get their timing together. Valentin has hit 2 home runs. This one was a laser beam into the seats in left field, his second homer of the ball game. He scored 3 runs. Yorendel de Castro, he's had a big day offensively. He's driven in 4 with a 2-run home run and a 2-run single. They scored 12 runs on 15 hits against Israel in an early termination game, their last game. And right now they are up 12-0. 12 runs on 10 hits. 3 more home runs. They have now hit 8 home runs in the Classic.
And the Netherlands has the perfect guy on the mound. Diego Marquel is a strike thrower, not a hard thrower, and a guy that Cuba has struggled with. There's his pitch count, just 38 pitches. The split balls to strikes is healthy as well. He was a star in 2013. Marquel went 3-0 and led them to San Francisco and was leading the Dominican, the eventual champs, 1-0 in the 5th inning when the wheels wobbled enough for the Dominican to get out in front and beat the Netherlands.
Marquel, a former Blue Jays farmhand. He spent 7 seasons in the minor leagues with the Blue Jays. This is his 5th career start in the World Baseball Classic.
Gracial to right. All right, you can call it the mercy rule or early determination or early lunch, as it might be here in Tokyo. But if you're up by 15, and that seems doable right now, after 5, it's game over. After 7, as you pointed out, Netherlands had this against Israel. If you lead by 10 after 7, game over as well. And this is just the first of 2 here in Tokyo today. Tonight, Israel and Japan. As much as you want to say Japan's heavy favorites, if you stop and you think about what Israel has done and who they've beaten to get to 4-1 in this Classic, then it is possible.
That's the one thing we have seen over the years in this Classic. Anything is possible. Remember, to start this Classic, Mexico gave up 5 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning and the top of the 9th inning to lose that game. And it's just one of those tournaments where you never really get to the resolution.
Despagne spanks one in the alley, and it's cut off there. Alfredo Despagne. Now, this is hard to watch. If you and I have been able to call this tournament, this is my 3rd, your 3rd. It's tough to watch when you know the pride that a guy like Despagne has, and many of these Cuban players. Despagne's had such a great tournament. He's 9 for 18 with 3 homers and 6 RBIs, but he just hasn't had a lot of help in front of him or behind him. Markwell got a hand on it. That's Simmons. That's automatic. That's 2. And the inning is over. 4 innings. Hensley Meulens feeling pretty good at 12-0.
Steele. Fastball, fly ball, deep center field. That's gonna do it. The Netherlands will walk off all the way to San Francisco. The Dutch have done it.
It was a great moment back in 2013 when the Netherlands and the Cubans met, and on to San Francisco went the Netherlands, the original Cinderellas of the World Baseball Classic. Netherlands versus Cuba. Now, in that game, the final score was 7-6, but it was 6-4 Cuba in the bottom of the 8th, and a young shortstop, Andrelton Simmons, stepped up and blasted a 2-run homer to left to tie that game, Buck Martinez. As you saw in that video, Andruw Jones scored the winning run. Andruw Jones wasn't headed to celebrate with his teammates. He was headed towards the Cuban dugout. That's Simmons, a fly ball into left center, and caught there lackadaisically. Almost a collision between the two for the out. Andruw Jones and Victor Mesa, and you saw Mesa quickly in that clip. There was such bad blood between the Netherlands and Cuba in that tournament in 2013. And Jones, the former major leaguer, was so incensed by what he felt was the slights coming from the other side. He scores the winning run, and he's headed towards the Cuban dugout, and he had to be held back.
Yeah, it was a very emotional win for them. That win knocked Cuba right out of the Classic, and they had a very good team. Abreu was the first baseman. He was 2 for 5 in that game. Abreu had hit a home run. There's the youngster Yoelqui Cespedes taking over defensively in left field. And the new pitcher is the lefty, Leandro Martinez.
He's the 5th to work already, and this is Dwayne Kemp, a pinch hitter. Really nice play by Ayala in the hole. And Martinez has a couple outs here in the 5th inning. Jurickson Profar comes up now. There's been damage up and down this Netherlands lineup, as you would expect, with 12 runs on 10 hits, 3 home runs. Valentin's rooting section, it's a noon start here, so they're short-handed, and they're awaiting his next at bat. He's only blasted 2 home runs in the ball game. And Buck, you and I have been able to see a healthy Jurickson Profar over here in Tokyo, and he's been impressive.
Boy, he has. He has played very well in center field, plus the fact the switch hitter has done a nice job batting in front of Valentin, who's had a big offensive game. Profar himself 2 for 3 today. He now has 11 hits in 22 at-bats. Boy, the Cuban team really has lost their focus. You can see after that ball went off the catcher's glove, he just raised his hands as if to say, "What are you doing? You crossed me up."
Yeah, and the pitcher put his hands up and say, "What are you doing? How come you didn't catch it?" Profar sends it down the right field line, and it's foul and out of play. And the troubles for Cuba defensively and maybe focus-wise arose in the late innings last night, and it was fatal to them, with Japan and Cuba playing a back-and-forth game. Cuba had a late lead, but Japan erased it, and then 3 unearned runs in the 8th inning was the difference in an 8-5 game. Profar, wow. Breaking ball outside part, drills it into the gap in right center field. One hops the wall, and if he's healthy, Buck Martinez, this guy is, he may be playing in the All-Star game this summer.
Well, and right now he's penciled in to compete for the left field job in Texas with the Rangers, and the way he's swinging the bat, you got to find a place to play him. He stays on this ball and drives it in the alley in right center. His 3rd hit of the afternoon. His 12th hit in the Classic. And boy, he is a very good offensive player. He is healthy and swinging with a lot of confidence right now.
Pinch runner Randolph Odeber is out there at second base. And now here's Valentin for at bat number 4. The first 2 were home runs. And Leandro Martinez. And of course, Valentin is a star over here. We've talked about the all-time season home run record, which he set in 2013. That one, a rocket into left field. That's going to knock home another run, and it's 13-0. That's 5 runs driven in for Valentin.
He came into this ball game with 5 RBIs in the Classic, and this base hit will drive in his 5th run of the afternoon. The Cuban pitchers just don't have anything to get this lineup out. 13 runs on 12 hits. Everybody up and down the order making a contribution. Valentin, 3 for 4. He reached on an air in his only other plate appearance. He just hit 2 homers, has a single. He scored 3 runs, and now he's driven in 5.
Didi Gregorius now. And in that 13 series here in the Classic, you know, these young major leaguers for the Netherlands some were just arriving. Gregorius didn't play. He had an elbow injury that year. Profar didn't join until they got to San Francisco. Bogaerts was 20. Scope was 21. But they have all, in 4 years, really blossomed. Gregorius had a 20-homer season with the Yankees last year, popped 32 doubles. Bogaerts was an all-star. Profar still coming back from that shoulder surgery. And a swing and a miss there. But more runs for the Netherlands. The rout continues in Tokyo. Tokyo Dome City. It's wet today here in Tokyo Town. Here's your game summary, and actually we need about 3 or 4 pages of this. 13-0 Netherlands. Valentin has driven in 5, 2 home runs. Yorendel de Castro getting his 2nd straight start has flourished. Keep that in mind if this ball club were to advance, that de Castro is probably going to get himself more playing time. And lots of changes for the Netherlands behind Markwell. Joke Cespedes, Joanna's half-brother, gets his first at bat, and he takes a strike. Randolph Odeber is out in center field. There's a swing and a miss. That is Charlin Scope, the older brother of Jonathan Scope. Stein Vandermeer. Nice to have a Vandermeer at short. Stein is out there.
Chance for these guys to play a little bit with the Netherlands leading 13-0.
And please welcome Dwayne Kemp to the show. Although he did hop in there as a pinch hitter to begin his day. And Markwell just keeps throwing strikes. Hensley Mullins. You see Bert Blyleven in the background. Andrew Jones, who is as heavily invested in this team, has been absolutely terrific, according to Mullins, as his bench coach. Center field, Odeber is challenged early, and he's going to look up, play this one off the wall. It bounces by him, and Saavedra will stop at second base.
That's the first extra base hit for Saavedra. His 5th hit of the Classic. He drills it off the center field wall over Odeber's head into center.
Here's Delgado, who doubled back in the 3rd inning. If you're just happening by, Netherlands all over Cuba. And this is about, what, 14 hours after last night, when the Cuban team finished against Japan in what was a terrific game until Cuba's defense let them down at the very end, and Japan got 3 unearned runs late to win it. And you can see it was a deflating loss, and it has carried over in somewhat of a hangover for Cuba today. And don't forget, you've got Diegomar Markwell, who does a little bit of everything for this pitching staff. And at 52, they will let him run all the way up to 85.
Markwell doing exactly what the Netherlands team was hoping for. He had a 1-2-3 first inning to start this game after his ball club had scored 3 in the top half of the first. And then Markwell's just done a great job of pounding the strike zone, mixing up his pitches very effectively.
Chopper, Kemp whistles one to first. Nice play in time. Now look, they've got major league shortstops. They've got Valentin, the slugger, but Bert Blyleven is a big reason why the Netherlands has had success over the last 8 years in this event. And of course, in the Hall of Fame in 2011, the only Dutch-born player in the Hall of Fame. 5th most all-time, 3,701 strikeouts. He has had to piece together a pitching staff. He did it in 09 when they stunned everybody and beat the Dominican twice and got to the 2nd round. He did it again in 13 when they shot through the 2nd round and had that dramatic win here against Cuba and got to San Francisco. He is a very accomplished broadcaster for the Twins television crew. He and Dick Bremer do a fine job. I know you see them a lot, Buck, in the American League, but it's really fascinating to see Blyleven go from broadcaster to pitching coach. And if you talk to the Netherlands pitchers, and we talked to Rick Vandenherk today, and he said, boy, I enjoy pitching over here in Japan. I just wish I could keep Bert here with me.
Yeah, Bert Blyleven really commits to this team, and he has been their pitching coach for the last 3 of these tournaments, and does a terrific job. He takes a lot of pride in developing some of these younger players. And he keeps it simple for them. Vandenberg, he wasn't sure if he was going to be used in relief today, if it was a close contest or saved for a potential playoff for tomorrow.
Ball in the air to left. Sam's looking into the corner. That one's going to go off the wall. Cuba's on the board. Saavedra will score, and young Victor Mesa has a double, and that makes everybody happy. Even the Dutch fans are clapping as Cuba's on the board. It's 13-1.
Victor Mesa picks up another RBI. He stays on this off-speed pitch, and he's just 20 years old. This is his third double of the Classic. Driving in the third run he is driven in.
Mesa and Yoelque Cespedes are the next generation of Cuban players. Both young. Cespedes 19, Mesa 20. Here is Santos.
Now, Santos was quite a spark early in this tournament, but as the competition has improved, they've been able to keep him off the base, and that has really stymied the Cuban offense.
On a hop, Charlin Scope makes the play. 13-1 Netherlands. Last game, round 2 here in Tokyo, should be a great one. Cinderella wears blue. Brian Lavarnway and Israel, an incredible ride here. But they're up against Japan, and last night, Japan got 2 home runs from Tetsudo Yamada. And so Israel gets the supreme tests this side of the bracket, and that's Japan here in the Tokyo Dome. It'll be big and loud, and obviously still a lot on the line. If Israel, and we're assuming this score is going to hold, if Israel is able to upset Japan, you would have a 3-way tie at 2-1.
Team Japan has decided to go with Kodai Senga, a young starter who has pitched in relief in this tournament. Senga's got a great arm. One of the best arms we have seen in this bracket. And he will start tonight for Japan. Senga throws in the mid-90s with a splitter that touches 90.
And you got to think Jerry Weinstein, you know, for a day has been thinking about this game, plotting exactly what the lineup's going to look like, what he's going to do with his pitching staff. And it seems like he's going to try to piece it together too as the game goes on.
He's going to start Josh Zide, who has pitched very well in relief, but he's going to start Zide, see if he can't put up a couple of zeros, get into the flow of the game, and hopefully score some runs. They've got some offense. There's no question about that. They hit very well in the first round in Seoul, Korea.
Struck him out, Jonathan Scope is out, number 1. Or excuse me, Charlin Scope. Jonathan was 1 for 3. His brother Charlin is 0 for 1. And here's Zaraga, hit by a pitch, walked, scored a couple runs on an 0 for 1 day. It was a noon start here in Tokyo. It's just past 2 o'clock. The game tonight here in Tokyo, 7 o'clock start. But you'll see fans filtering in as this game goes. The Japanese fans like to get here early. They like to watch batting practice. And these day-night doubleheaders here in Japan have been a one admission ticket. And so fans are able to come early, and they've done that throughout. This is our 4th day night in round 1 and round 2 combined.
Well, and Chu, when you watch Team Japan take batting practice, I mean, it's an event. They've got all kinds of things going on. They have drills behind the batting cage, then there's their natural batting cage, and then they have a bunting cage up along the foul line.
That one off the glove of Martinez, and Zaraga is thrown out by a step. The bunting cage, that's an elaborate contraption that they somehow immediately erect down the first base line. It sounds like a torture contraption for Brian Kenny, right? The bunting cage?
Well, and then too, then that's going to be a torture contraption for Major League players. You've been sent to the bunting cage.
Yes, you're right.
But here in Japan, everybody bunts. I don't care where you are in the lineup, what the score is. We have seen sluggers bunting in this tournament, and of course in that extra inning game, Suzuki, the big right-handed hitting power hitter, dropped down a bunt to set up the game-winning rally. So it doesn't make any difference who you are. When you're asked to bunt, you focus and deliver. Suzuki came into that ball game as a defensive replacement, and he was the first batter in the 11th. After they placed 2 runners on base, he dropped down a perfect bunt, and that set up the game-winning base hit by Sho Nakata.
This copyright telecast presented by the authority of the World Baseball Classic Incorporated may not be reproduced, retransmitted in any form. Counts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. And that's in quotation marks. To right, Mesa on the track makes the catch. Netherlands down 1, 2, 3. We haven't been able to say that at all today. In Tokyo, Randolph Odeberg in center field runs that one down. And the bottom of the 6th has begun. We got a Team USA and a Puerto Rico, and they're not in San Diego, Buck. They're in Tokyo. What's going on?
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting matchup. Puerto Rico beat the Dominican Republic in the first game of round 2 in San Diego. And when you look ahead, the Team USA will play later on. They will play Venezuela in their first game.
Second round, you've got United States. Venezuela just arrived, and they drop right in to that second round. That one is going to be caught. Nice swing there by Yorisbel Gracial, and Kalian Sams was open, Buck, and Gracial hit him in stride.
Yeah, Sams had really run in left field, and Markwell's done a great job. He's taken this big lead, putting the ball in play and working very quickly. 2 quick outs here in the 6th.
It's a shame to see Alfredo Despaign's classic end this way. Despaigne, a base hit his last time up. He is 9 for 18, 3 homers, 6 driven in. He's so well respected, not only by everybody in the Classic on the field, but all the fans here in Japan love this guy.
He has played for Chiba Lotte Marines the last 3 seasons. In this past offseason, he signed as a free agent. Got a terrific 3-year contract to play in Fukuoka for the SoftBank Hawks. So he will switch teams after a couple of big seasons.
And he'll be a teammate of Netherlands right-hander Rick Vandenherk. Vandenherk has had a really nice run in Fukuoka with the Hawks.
Vandenherk really learned how to pitch while pitching in Korea, and then came over here to Japan and has had 2 real good seasons.
Stein Vandermeer on to first. Nice play by the shortstop. Hensley Mullins and the Netherlands up 13-1. If Netherlands keep this lead, they're up by a dozen. They need 1 more inning to finish this game. And then, as Hensley Mullins told us, go back to the hotel, put our feet up, and watch tonight with Israel and Japan, and root like heck for Japan. Because if Japan wins, and obviously this score holds, then both the Netherlands and Japan are headed on to Dodger Stadium in the finals of the World Baseball Classic. Now, if Israel, the Cinderella, has one more big upset left in them, there will be a play-in game tomorrow. We have to wait till later tonight to decide who will be in it. It's different than the play-in situation in Mexico, in that of the 3 teams, instead of the very bottom and eliminating a team, you look for the very top, and that team will advance, and the other 2 will play for that second spot. That is hit deep to center field. Santos back, and that ball is gone. Kalian Sams. That was a big boy home run, and the Netherlands has now hit 4 of these.
Gives them 9 home runs in the Classic, and Kalian Sams had the big sac fly in 2013 to win it for the Netherlands over Cuba. And he gets a start here. This is his first start in the Classic this season, and he has had a double, and now this long home run to center. He is a big man. He's 6'3", weighs 245, and this one's to dead center into that hitter's backdrop.
(14-1). Now Vandermeer, and that's a swing. Boy, as the utility infielder on this team, it's hard to get playing time. He's a native of the Netherlands. Little flip into shallow left. Cespedes is there to make the catch. I mean, think about it, all right? If Simmons can't go at short, you're going to slide Gregorius in probably, right? You're going to keep Scope at second and Bogarts at third. If something happened to Gregorius, you're probably going to slide Bogarts over to short.
And if something happened to Bogarts, you'd probably slide Profar into short.
Right. You could bring Profar in. Or you could put Profar at second, move Scope over.
Yeah. So being a utility infielder on this team is not really a very good job.
He's not even as close as the Speaker of the House. I mean, he's like a page at that point. There's a little chopper. Nice play to cut it off by Martinez, and he gets the out at first base. So there's 2 outs here in the 7th inning.
You know, the concern for this team, for Hensley Meulens, was the quality of their pitching, and you mentioned Rick Vandenherk. So if there is a play-in game and they have to play in that, they've got Vandenherk to support this great offense, and also the job that Yigomar Marquardt has done today. 1 run on 4 hits, pitched 6 strong innings, and I believe he's probably done for the afternoon, but he has done a great job. Of course, getting staked to an early lead helps.
I'll tell you what, if the Netherlands gets to Los Angeles, it's going to be fascinating to watch if Jair Jurgens gets a start there or gets to pitch there, how he fares against a team coming from the other side of the bracket, because the last time we saw him here, he looked like the Jurgens of 2011 or 2012, and it was a big improvement from his first start. He had good velocity, good command of the changeup. He looks like he's in outstanding shape.
He threw 74 pitches in 6 innings of work, 53 strikes. And Jair Jurgens is anxious to get another opportunity to pitch in the big leagues. And the way he threw the other day against Israel, he had a good fastball, commanded his pitches well, and looked very strong.
That one is rolled out to second. Another home run. Kalian Sams makes it 14-1. 3 outs to get for the Netherlands. Vladimir Valentin has been swinging it in this one. 3 hits, 5 runs driven in, 2 home runs. And he and the Netherlands are just 3 outs away from going 2-1 and putting themselves in a great spot. And they'll have to watch tonight's Israel-Japan game to decide exactly what happens after that. It could be, if Japan wins, that Japan and the Netherlands are headed to Los Angeles. Well, actually, they'll go to Arizona for 2 or 3 days, play an exhibition game or two, pop up first base side. And Alarcón pops out. Because of the travel, the extensive travel, what is it, about 10 and a half, 11 hours to Los Angeles from here?
Yeah, the two teams that advance out of this pool, the first team, the top seed in the pool, will fly out early, and they will play 2 games in Arizona. 1 against the Cubs, 1 against the Dodgers. The second team will play just 1 game. They'll play against the Arizona Diamondbacks in spring training. So they will play a game and get acclimated to the time zone change. And of course, Hensley Mullins, he has come from Arizona. He was in spring training with the Giants, and he's used to that Phoenix area. So his team will be there. They'll get a couple of games in and a little workout before they resume action in Los Angeles. That's really kind of an interesting development for this team, Netherlands, because their closer, Luc van Meel, is 7 feet tall, and he has a lot of trouble after long plane flights just getting loose again.
So I like the fact that they're going to get him there ahead of that final round, if they in fact get to. There's Ballantine clapping. Martis on the mound trying to finish things off. And the Dutch need just 1 out here to finish this ball game. It's the early determination rule, or in our case, Buck, the early lunch rule here in Tokyo.
Before the double header, second game, Israel and Team Japan, and it'll be a rocking place tonight if Israel can pull off another upset behind Josh Zeid.
I really hope we get to see this guy again in the World Baseball Classic de España. He's been great to us, chance to visit with him. Fun to watch. He's had so many big moments. And he's found a home here in Japan. Guy plays a lot of baseball every year. Plays in Cuba that season, and then in Japan over here in the summers. Base hit by Saavedra to left.
His second hit of the afternoon. He has doubled, now singled in 3 at-bats. But Despagne last year here in Japan, playing for Chiba Lotte Marines, hit 24 home runs and drove in 92. Big-time power hitter. You just wonder if this is going to be the final game for Frederick Cepeda, their long-term DH. Cepeda among the leaders in many of the classic leaderboards offensively. A disappointing tournament this season for sure.
36 years old. Chopper, this should do it. Stijn Vandermeer on to first, and the Netherlands wins it. They go to 2-1. Cuba is eliminated. The Netherlands, the worst they can do is a play-in game tomorrow. And if Japan wins tonight over Israel, it's Japan and the Netherlands advancing. If Israel were to win, a play-in game tomorrow. Second round scenarios here. If Japan wins tonight, it's pretty simple. If Israel wins tonight, play-in game tomorrow. One of the 3 teams will advance automatically. The other 2 will have a play-in game. This was messy for the Cubans, but for the Netherlands, they've got a head of steam.
Yeah, disappointing outcome for Cuban, but what an offensive showing for the Netherlands. Second game in a row, they put up double-digit runs, early termination. 14 runs on 13 hits. They pounded out 4 home runs, including 2 by Vladimir Ballantine, the big slugging star. Today he drove in 5 as Cuba goes home Certainly a disappointing outcome for 2017 in the World Baseball Classic.
Well, remember, a few nights ago it was don't poke the bear, and that was Ballantine. I think today the advice would be just don't pitch to the bear.